Good morning, grade 8 students, and I am Andrea Nicole F. Macabante, your English teacher for this day. And for our today's lesson, we are going to discuss and explore modal verbs, nouns, and adverbs regarding their structure, types, and examples. So before we dive into our topic, let's refresh a bit of our minds regarding our previous topic. We just finished discussing the sentence structures. In the previous instruction, we talked about simple, compound, complex, and compound-complex sentences, wherein we also defined, discussed, and differentiated their definition and each of their elements. We also did some activities as well as creating examples and relating it to our daily lives. So very good, everyone. And for the start of our new lesson, let's move our body a little bit and do some energizer first. Are you ready to do some energizer, guys? If you're ready, let's prepare ourselves and follow the steps that I'm going to flash on my screen. Let's watch this, guys.
Push pineapple, shake the tree. I got do. Push pineapple, grind coffee. To the left, to the right, jump up and down and to the knees. Come and dance every night, sing with a hula melody. I met a hula mistress somewhere in Waikiki. Well, she was selling pineapple, playing ukulele. And when I went to the girl, come on and teach me to sway. She laughed and whispered to me, yes, come tonight to the bay. The lovely beach and the sky, the moon of Kauai, around Calypso surround, we'll all be singing this song. I got do, push pineapple, shake the tree. I got do, push pineapple, grind coffee. To the left, to the right, jump up and down and to the knees. Come and dance every night, sing with a hula melody. I got do, push pineapple, shake the tree. I got do, push pineapple, grind coffee. To the left, to the right, jump up and down and to the knees. Come and dance every night, sing with a hula melody.
Now that you refresh your mind as well as your body, let's enter our new topic for this day. So first, let's define the meaning of modal verbs. So what is a modal verb? A modal verb is a type of auxiliary verb that is used to indicate modality, that is likelihood, ability, permission, or even possibility. Example: two of my friends can play guitar. The modal used here in the example is the modal can, which shows ability. Modal verbs are used to express certain hypothetical conditions such as advice, capability, and request. They're used alongside the main verb to change its meaning slightly because they are auxiliary verbs, meaning they can't necessarily be used on their own. And remember, a modal verb should only appear alone if it's clear from the context of what the main verb is. We have here the list of modal verbs. We have can, could, may, might, will, would, shall, should, ought to, and must. So when do we use modal verbs? First, we use it for likelihood. Some things seems likely but we don't know for sure. In these cases, you can use modal verbs should and must to show probability without certainty. For example, her parents must be so proud of her. Another example, my baby brother should be asleep by now. Next is possibility. In situation when something is possible but not certain, use Modal verbs could, may, and might. For example, judging by the clouds, it might rain today. Another example, she may become the youngest pro soccer player ever. Next is ability. The modal verb that can show whether or not the subject is able to do something, such as perform an action or demonstrate an ability. Likewise, the negative form cannot or can't shows that the subject is unable to do something. Let's have some example. She can speak 3 languages, but none of them well. Another example. You can lead the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Next is asking permission. If you want to ask permission to do something, start your question with can, may, or could. Traditionally, in more formal and polite usage, may is better for permission. If you ask, can I go to the bathroom? It could be misinterpreted as, do I have the ability to go to the bathroom? However, in modern usage, may and can are both perfectly acceptable options when describing possibility or permission. So let's have examples. May I leave early today? Another example. Could I play too? Next is request. Similarly, if you want to ask someone else to do something, start your question with will, would, can, or could. Examples. Would you get that bags off the top shelf? Next example. Will you turn that music down? Suggestion or advice. What if you want to recommend something but not in a commanding way? If you're giving suggestion or advice without ordering someone around, you can use the modal verb should. Example, you should try the lasagna. Another example, that guy should wear less cologne. Command. On the other hand, if you want to command someone, use the modal verbs must, have to do, or need to. Example, you must wash your hands before cooking. Another example, you need to be here before 8 o'clock. Obligation or necessity. Modal verbs can express a necessary action such as an obligation, duty, or requirement. Likewise, the negative form expresses that an action is not necessary. Use the same modal verbs as with commands such as must, have to, or need to. Examples. We have to wait for our boss to arrive before we open. Next, you don't need to come if you don't want to. Lastly is habit. To show an ongoing or habitual action. This is something the subject does regularly. You can use the modal verb would for the past tense and will for the present and future tense. The phrase used to is also acceptable if you're talking about a habit that no longer exists. Example, when I live alone, I would fall asleep with music. Another example, I will arrive early and leave late to every meeting. Now let's talk about the modal verb structure in a sentence. Most of the time we follow this formula, subject plus modal verb plus the main verb and plus the complement. Let's see this example in a table. But students, there are things to remember about modal verbs. Number 1. Modal verbs do not add s or es to the third person singular. Number 2. Modal verbs don't need auxiliaries to form negative and question. Lastly, modal verbs don't have infinitives or ing forms. Let's now summarize what are the key points for this topic. So the modal verb can is used for ability or possibility. Next is for impossibility, asking for permission or even request. Next is the modal verb could. Could is the past tense for can and used for permission, request, possibility, future, or ability. The modal verb may is used for permission or possibility. Next is the modal verb might. The modal verb might is the past tense for modal verb may, and it is used for possibility. The modal verb shall is used for offer, suggestion, or permission, while the modal verb should is the past tense of shall and used for saying what's right or correct, or even possibility. Next is the modal verb will. It is used for decision, offer, or promise, while the modal verb would is the past tense of will, and it is used for permission, request, and invitation. Okay, now, after learning about the modal verbs, we are now going to enter the next topic, which is the noun. It is somehow related to modal verbs as you saw earlier in the structure I showed you about modal verbs. So the structure goes like this: the subject plus modal verb plus main verb plus complement, wherein the subject is equivalent to noun, the modal verb is equal to modals, while the complement is equals to adverbs. Now, what is a noun? A noun is a word that names something such as a person, a place, thing, or idea. In a sentence, noun can play the role of subject, direct object, indirect object, subject, complement, object, complement, appositive, or even adjective. Nouns can be living things such as Keanu Reeves or cat, places such as beach or Detroit, or even things such as rulers or PlayStation 5, or even ideas, which is nihilism or theory of evolution. Nouns usually have articles before them in a sentence such as the, a, or an. Sometimes you'll see adjectives or words like some or this before nouns. Aside from the first word in a sentence, if a word is capitalized, then it's a noun, such as a person's name. Noun has two common types, which are proper noun and common noun. A proper noun is a specific name of a person, place, or thing, and always capitalized. Example: Tina have much homework to do this evening. So the subject in this sentence is Tina, and Tina is a specific name of a person, while the common noun is the opposite of a proper noun. A common noun is also known as a generic noun. A common noun is the generic name of an item in a class or in a group, and is not capitalized until appearing at the beginning of a sentence or in a title. Example: the girl crossed the river. Girl is a common noun. We do not learn the identity of the girl by reading this sentence, though we know the action she takes. River is also a noun or a common noun here in the sentence. So simply, noun is the subject in a sentence that mostly found in the beginning of a sentence or sometimes capitalized. Let's now have our last topic. What do you observe in the example words? They mostly ends in ly, right? And also, they are all adjective if you remove the ly. So to make the long story short, yes, this is our next topic, which is the adverb. And this is how adverbs look like. So what is an adverb? An adverb is a word that modifies or describes a verb, an adjective, another adverb, or even a whole sentence. Adverbs often ends in ly, but some cases such as fast look exactly the same as their adjective counterparts. Remember, place adverbs as close as possible to the words they are supposed to modify. Putting the adverb in the wrong spot can produce an awkward sentence at best and completely change the meaning at worst. Adverb is a modifier and has 5 types. So let's see what are those 5 types. So we have adverb of time, manner, degree, place, and frequency. First, we have the adverbs of time. An adverb of time provides more information about when a verb takes place. Adverbs of time are usually placed at the beginning or end of a sentence. When it is of particular importance to express the moment something happened, we'll put it at the start of a sentence. Examples of an adverbs of time. We have never, lately, just, always, recently, during, yet, soon, sometimes, usually, and so far. Next is adverbs of place. Adverbs of place illustrate where the verb is happening. It's usually placed after the main verb or the object, or at the end of the sentence. Examples of adverbs of place are here, there, nowhere, everywhere, out, in, above, below, outside, or into. Adverbs of manner. Adverbs of manner provides more information about how a verb is done. Adverbs of manner are probably the most common of all adverbs. They're easy to spot and most of them will end in ly. Examples of adverb of manner. We have neatly, slowly, quickly, sadly, calmly, polite, loudly, kindly, and lazily. We also have adverbs of degree. Adverbs of degree explain the level or intensity of a verb, adjective, or even another adverb. Examples of adverb of degree we have almost, quite, nearly, to, enough, just, hardly, simply, and so. And lastly, we have the adverbs of frequency. Adverbs of frequency explain how often the verb occurs. They're often placed directly before the main verb of a sentence. Examples of adverbs of frequency we have never, always, rarely, sometimes, normally, seldomly, usually, and again. So for you not to be confused between the word subject and modifier, let's see their differences. What is the difference between adverb and noun? A noun is a word that is used to identify people, places, objects, happenings, and etc. An adverb is a word which is used to describe a verb, an adjective, or a sentence. So let's take a look at this for deeper analysis of their difference. After the discussion, let's test your learning with a simple activity that I personally prepared. So, read the instruction and follow the format of answering. Analyze each word carefully. That's the end of our lesson for this day. But before I dismiss all of you, are there any unclear areas in our discussion? Is there any question you would like to ask before we officially end this session? If you have concerns, things that are unclear or difficulties, please kindly PM me or send me a message so that I can assist and help you. If the discussion is understood, that's the end of our lesson for today, and you are all dismissed. Goodbye, class. See you next meeting.